Hello, my name is Sam Elliott, and this is my RC-1000 portfolio. So, a little about me. I'm a freshman at App State, and I'm planning to be an anthropology major. And I want to just because it's interesting how humanity interacts with itself and the world. So, another big interest of mine is fiction, especially sci-fi and fantasy. And I like them in any form, but I really like them in video games form. So I decided to do my research on the effects of video games on behavior, particularly in regards to violent video games and behavior. So, in regards to my paper, now that I'm more distant from it, I would I would say I'm mostly satisfied with it. Um, After reading over again, I've kind of noticed some places where my wording and phrasing feel kind of awkward, but I feel like my arguments and rhetoric come through pretty clearly and are fairly strong, if a bit long-winded. In regards to course goals, I think I did a pretty good job of writing with a strong voice and authority. The writing feels like distinctly my own, and I feel like my voice just comes through pretty strongly, and all my arguments are well supported and my sources are reliable, so I would say that's pretty good in the authority department too. And that being said, I do feel like while the end of my paper is still supported, I feel like the end of it gets a bit ranty. All right. And then onto the podcast. So for the podcast, I was teaming up with my classmate Campbell Nixon, who had a very similar topic to mine. So for the podcast, Campbell and I completely shifted from the formal tone of our essays to a much more casual and conversational tone. We also wanted to reach a pretty general audience, so because of this, rather than a script for our podcasts, we decided to go for a more of an outline of specific points we wanted to make, and then kind of let the conversation flow more or less naturally in that direction, rather than trying to force it to go in a certain way. This created a more organic podcast, and it made it easier for us to give the information in a way that be understood by general audience. I feel like the two of us did a pretty good job of adjusting our argumentative essays rhetoric to a. I feel like the two of us did a good job of adjusting our essays rhetorics to a completely different situation in the form of a podcast. And since we made some of the same points but in a more easily digestible manner. I do kind of feel like our tone came off less serious than I'd hoped based on some of the seemingly joking audience reactions, but that could also be chalked up to college students being college students. So, for my closing thoughts, I would say my abilities have grown a lot this semester. As I said in my first reflection, I've said that I've always had trouble with kind of putting my thoughts into words because, high school. It doesn't matter if it makes sense, it just needs to sound good. But I think I did a pretty good job of articulating this semester. And so in high school, I never really needed to draft because of the aforementioned reason. So and I think this class was definitely helpful in developing that woefully underdeveloped skill. And this class has also helped to develop my ability to adjust contents from one audience to another, since I've never really needed to do that before. In high school, it was always either just my audience was just the class at most, but usually just the teacher. So, I mean, that skill is also really underdeveloped. And this is an important skill to have developed because basically any job that involves any amount of writing is going to make you write for quite a few different audiences. And I think this is definitely true in anthropology, which I want to pursue. So I think Professor Custer's classes helped me prepare for future events, and at the very least, it prepared me a lot more than high school English ever did. And I think that's that. And this is Sam signing off.